Donald Trump, the ultimate billionaire business mogul, but behind all the success, there lie many skeletons in his closet. Here we present to you 6 dangerous Donald Trump scandals. Is this man truly fit for becoming the next U.S. president? Number 6. Racism. Some of the statements Trump made during his presidential campaign launch have been described as overtly racist. He expressed an intention to build a Great Wall along the U.S.-Mexican border. He believed that building the wall would reduce the number of illegal immigrants into the United States. When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending the best. They're not sending you. They're sending people that have lots of problems, and they're bringing those problems with us. They're bringing drugs. They're bringing crime. They're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people. Although the statement prompted numerous negative reactions, it also generated a lot of support for Trump's cause, and the wall became a major focus point in his campaign. However, this was not Trump's first account of racist behavior. In 1973, the Trump and his father were charged by the Department of Justice for violation of 1968 Civil Rights Act, which enabled people of color to share in the same housing rights as the white majority. An investigation showed that minority tenants were either denied the right to rent Trump properties or directed to other Trump development areas which were placed in less white areas. The Trump Management Corporation settled the suit without an admission of guilt. Number 5. Sexism and sexual assault. Donald Trump has never made any consistent efforts to hide his sexism. A video recording of a 2005 conversation between him and Access Hollywood's Billy Bush has recently been released. The conversation takes place off camera, and the statements that he makes would severely damage his presidential campaign. It cost him the support of several Republican politicians. Aside from expressing the lack of a moral dilemma in his pursuit of a married woman, Trump also states that fame had enabled him to conduct himself however he wanted around women. I just start kissing them. It's like a magnet. Just kiss. I don't even wait. And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything. Grab them by the pussy. You can do it. Anything. Although many were completely outraged by his words, others considered the behavior to be typical of Trump. For more than 2 decades, Trump owned the Miss Universe organization. Many reports find Trump routinely walking into girls' dressing rooms, catching them in various states of undress. Even though most of the women felt uncomfortable, Trump explained in an interview that it was his right to do so. I'm allowed to go in because I'm the owner of the pageant, and therefore I'm inspecting it. Is everyone okay? You know, they're standing there with no clothes, and you see these incredible looking women, and so I sort of get away with things like that. Another common practice of his was to ask contestants to rate each other on who was more attractive, which many of them found to be very demeaning. Trump would also make frequent remarks on how attractive his daughter Ivanka was, and that if she weren't his daughter, he would date her. Former female contestants on Trump's show The Apprentice have also accused him of demoralizing treatment and sexism. He said that all of the women on The Apprentice flirted with me, consciously or unconsciously. That's to be expected. Jill Harth was running the American Dream pageant together with George Harani when they met with Donald Trump in 1992 to discuss his possible involvement in the organization. According to Harth, Trump immediately started making passes at her. After the pageant, she sued him for sexual misbehavior. On one occasion, Trump allegedly groped Harth at a party. Another time, he forced her into a bedroom and made a pass at her. Ivana, Trump's ex-wife, suggested at one point that he had raped Harth, although she later recanted the statement. After the tape incident, more women started to come forward, accusing Trump of groping them or other forms of harassment. Number 4. Tenant Intimidation. In 1981, Donald Trump acquired a building on Central Park South for $13 million with the intention of tearing it down and building a luxury apartment complex that would face Central Park. Before he could do any of that, he had to evict the tenants that were already living in the 15-story building and paying rent below market level. State laws limited how much their rent would be increased and guaranteed that they, and many times their children and grandchildren, had a place to stay. When they refused to leave, a David versus Goliath battle started between the small group of tenants and Donald Trump. Instead of buying the tenants out, which was a common practice in such situations, Trump resorted to more unconventional tactics. Leaks were not fixed, appliances were not repaired, and people who had made construction modifications in their apartments were given 10 days to restore the place to its original condition. A number of eviction notices were left for tenants on unfounded grounds. Some of them were accused of not having paid their rent, which was not the case. Aluminum foil was placed on the windows of empty units in order to give the building a derelict appearance. immigrants. The battle continued for 5 years. At one point during this time, Trump attempted to offer the empty units in the building as free homeless shelters. When the city declined his offer, arguing that moving people into a building that was heading for demolition made no sense, he stated, "I actually thought it was a very generous offer. I don't want to see people out on the streets." In 1986, Trump gave up on his plans, and the tenants were allowed to stay in their apartments and pay the same rent. Number 3. Undocumented workers. Before construction on Trump Tower could begin, the Bonwit Teller store, an Art Deco edifice which was widely appreciated for its architecture, had to be demolished. The 200 undocumented Polish workers that were hired for the job were paid the substandard wage of $5 per hour for backbreaking work. Sometimes they were not paid at all. They were not wearing the required safety equipment, and most of them had often slept at the site. When they tried to complain about their inhumane working conditions, they were threatened with deportation. Despite Trump's claim of being unaware of the situation, in 1991, a federal judge found him and other defendants guilty of avoiding to pay union pension and welfare contributions for the workers. This situation seems to contradict the ironclad position on illegal immigration expressed by Trump in many of his 2016 campaign speeches. Number 2. The Trump University. Trump University started with online courses that would supposedly give its students the secrets behind successful real estate development. It quickly evolved into live seminars that boasted about teaching people how to get rich. Although the initial 3-day seminars were free, many students were persuaded to take mentorship classes, for which they would pay up to $35,000. They were even encouraged to go into debt in order to pay for the elite programs. Students were told that the instructors had been personally selected by Donald Trump, and that the businessman himself would make appearances. They soon found that what the university had promised and what it delivered were two different things. Trump never made an appearance, and even though the university initially had some prestigious teachers, the quality of the teaching staff rapidly deteriorated. It quickly became obvious that the organization was closer to a scam than an actual educational institution. Ronald Schnackenberg, a former salesman for Trump University, stated, "Based upon my personal experience and employment, I believe that Trump University was a fraudulent scheme, and that it preyed upon the elderly and uneducated to separate them from their money." Any positive reviews received by the school were determined to have been given under pressure. Trump University also offered graduate programs, postgraduate programs, and even doctorate programs. The university was in fact in direct violation of New York law for operating without an educational license. Trump was sued by the city of New York for cheating students out of $40 million. He also had 2 class action lawsuits in California. The school was closed in 2010, but the lawsuits are still ongoing. Number 1. Mafia Ties. In the 80s, most of the concrete businesses in New York were controlled by organized crime. Many would argue that a man in Trump's position, involved in construction and the casino business, would inevitably brush shoulders with members of such organizations. In the meantime, I was a builder. I was never going to run for office. I'd go by the lowest bid, and I'd go by their track record, but I didn't do a personal history of who they are, he said. Although Trump has denied being deliberately involved with the mafia, the evidence gathered from investigative journalists and through testimony seems to dictate the opposite. Kenneth Shapiro was the partial owner of a site in Atlantic City, who Trump negotiated with when he was planning to build his first casino. Law enforcement described Shapiro as being an agent of Philadelphia mob boss Nicodemo Little Nicky Scarfo. Shapiro testified in front of a federal grand jury to giving the then Atlantic City mayor, Michael J. Matthews, political contributions on Trump's behalf. These contributions were meant to sway zoning permits and signs in Trump's favor. A co-owner of the site was Dan Sullivan, whom many suspected had been behind the murder of Jimmy Hoffa. He had a lengthy criminal record and numerous ties to organized crime. Trump reportedly used him as a New York City labor consultant. In a 2005 interview, Trump admitted knowing full well that both men were involved with the mafia, saying about Shapiro, "He was like a third-rate local real estate mob guy, nothing spectacular. And I got lucky. I heard a rumor that because Sullivan was a great con man, I heard a rumor that Sullivan killed Jimmy Hoffa." In a 2007 deposition, Trump denied having ever been associated with members of organized crime, which would make the businessman guilty of lying under oath. Trump Towers was also allegedly built by using concrete owned by the infamous Castellano family and mafia chieftain Anthony Fat Tony Salerno. Robert Labuddy, a high-stakes gambler and a renowned horse breeder with ties to crime boss John Joti, was also among Trump's reported mob connections. His casino was fined $450,000 for giving Labuddy 9 luxury cars, which were quickly converted to cash. Former former president of the Trump Plaza Casino, John O'Donnell, described a 1988 meeting between LaBuddy and Trump. The meeting took place aboard Trump's private helicopter, and it involved negotiations over the acquisition of a $500,000 racehorse. Upon learning that Trump had feelings for his daughter, LaBuddy allegedly threatened him. "Donald, I'll pull your balls from your legs." On 2 separate occasions, Trump both admitted and denied having known who LaBuddy was. Edith Kramer, LaBuddy's daughter, told Yahoo News, "He's a liar. Of course he knew him. I flew in the Trump helicopter with Trump's then wife Ivana and the kids. My dad flew it up and down to Atlantic City. My 35th birthday party was at the plaza and Donald was there."